Hello everyone, I'm Sushma Biswati here again to cover the next topic of database management system, that is types of SQL statement. The objective of today's session is recap of previous session and to learn and use data types of SQL statements. So in detail we will cover here the use of data types in SQL statement. To start with the recap, in the previous session already we have covered, before going to start creating the table, during the software development life cycles design phase, we can create the database schema that is nothing but the overall design of the application database. So we have seen one example. Here we have defined the 6 different entities along with the attributes for the college database. So we have covered what SQL can do with the database, what are the different operations those we can perform with the SQL statements. That is execute, retrieve, insert, update, delete records from the database. Right? So we have covered what are the different types of database languages. Here alternative word I have used, that is SQL statement. Right? For database language also you can use alternative word, that is SQL statement. So purposely I use here so that you will clear with this. So these are also called as SQL statement, and these are of 4 types that already we have covered in the previous session. So there are 4 basic types of SQL statement, that is data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, and transaction control language. And also we have covered in the previous session what different statement comes under these categories. So create table, database, alter, these are the examples of DDL statement. Then insert, update, delete, select operation. These are the example of the DMS statement. Grant, trio are the example of DCL, and commit, rollback are the example of DCL. So here one thing I have added in the slide, student, that is users of these statements. So here if you observe the users, so DBA will be the database administrator. Here DBA is nothing but the database administrator is the user of the DDL statement. Then the end user for the DML statement will be the programmers, right? Or your end user, those who want to perform actual operation with the database with the help of graphical user interface, right? So again here the database administrator will be the user of the data control language to control the database, right? And here again DBA will be user for the transaction control language. So here the idea will be clear. So here during the software development life cycles design phase, right? So DBA will create the database, right? And this database will be physically exist in the database. All these tables or different objects created by the database administrator during the design phase of your software development, right, are physically exist into the database. So anytime, whenever you require, you can use that tables as per your application requirement. Also, whatever structure you are creating, whatever data you are inserting into the table will be exist in the table. So here, during the implementation phase of the software development lifecycle, your programmer will use the different DML statements to perform the different DML operation, data manipulation operations. These operations are insert, update, delete. So here programmer will embed these statements on the click event of the submit button. This button can be update button, delete button, or insert button, right? Or it can be read button. Right? So programmer or developer of this software will use this command, right, to insert or to add into the click event of the submit button, right, to perform this operation. So whenever end user will be the end user, for example, you as a student click on the submit button, the particular operation will be performed on that submit button event. Right? So here again for DCL and TCL statement, these are the control statement. Definitely these are all the administration commands are used by the database administrator for the maintenance. So you can note down this. So responsibility of the database administrator will be to define the database, to define the structure of the tables, or to define the structure of the different database objects, right? Before going to use these commands, these database statements or SQL statement in the DML operations, and also to control the database. So to start with the student, the next concept here related to our database SQL statements. So the main important component in every programming language is the data types. As you know, without having knowledge about the data types, you can't write any program. So again here, like your other programming languages, data types is the main component in the database language, that is structured query language. So here, these basic commands for the basic data types are similar in every DBMS softwares, but little bit difference is there. right? So today we will have discussion, detailed discussion on the Oracle data type that is part of our syllabus. And only short, only I want to tell you what are the different data types exist in the MySQL. MySQL data types and MySQL language you have to only study in the first study assignment of the laboratory, GBMS lab. Right? You don't have to implement this command in the syllabus, right? So only you should know what are the different data types that exist in the MySQL. Now, what is MySQL here? MySQL is the DBMS software that you can install for creating the database. So MySQL data types are broken into here 3 categories like your other programming language. So first category is numeric data types, and it includes integer. Here the data type is having only 3 characters, that is int, int, then tiny int, small int, medium int, big int, float, MD, right? Float, double, and decimal. These are the float data types, real data types. Here M indicate the magnitude and D indicate here the decimal points. Right? So here with these data types, you can define the float values or real values, right? So like your other programming language. So in detail, I will not cover much more because all of you are familiar with the data types. So the concepts of data types are also applicable here in the structured query language that you know. The next category of the data type is the date and time types. That is date, time, timestamp, time, and year. These are the different date and time types exist in the MySQL. Here you can remember, student, these MySQL Oracle languages are not case sensitive. Either you can write in the capital or small letters. Okay? Then string types. So like your other languages, there are some string types to define the name of the student, to define the name of the employee as per your application requirements. So here character, M, varchar, M, blob, text, tiny blob, right? And so on. These are the different string data types exist in the MySQL. So the example of the numeric types, if you see here, that is salary of the employee. If you want to define the salary of the employee, the best choice will be numeric data types that you know. Right? Then to define the field, an example of the data type is date of birth. You can define using the date type, right? And the name of the student you can define using the string type. So now we can discuss here what are the different Oracle data types. So little bit difference is there, right? So you should not confuse. That's why in detail only I will cover the Oracle data type here. Again, I will cover only basic types, and as per the requirements in the different statements and queries, we will cover the other types also. So built-in Oracle SQL data types are following character data types. So here again, char, nchar, varchar2, varchar, right? N, varchar2, right? These are the different data types. Glob, long, right? Glob, long. These data types are used when your data, you want to define the use amount of data. That we will not cover now in detail, but 3 basic types I will cover here. That is character and varchar. Then number data type and date data type. The number data type, date type, and binary types. Okay? So again here the spelling for the number data type is the number, NUMBR. This is the number data type exists in the Oracle. In MySQL, the number data types are int, tiny, int. But here we are using number data type. Then for date, again the spelling is DAT. This is the name of the data type that you can use to define the any date field, that for example date of joining. And also there exists some binary data types, block, file, raw, that we will also cover when it is required in the query, defining the query, right? Then character, for character type, the spelling is CHAR, and here varchar2, and also varchar is there. So what is the difference between this varchar and varchar2 and character, that we will cover in the next slide. Then first, if we talk about the number data type in detail, the syntax for defining the number data type is number, and in bracket you can specify here precision and scale. In bracket you can specify precision and scale. So precision defines the number of digits in the numeric field, your attribute field, and here scale represents the decimal places. So if you take here example, salary is the example of the numeric data type. Salary attribute is the example of the numeric type. So number is my data type here, and 10,2 is the size of the data, my attribute. Right? So 10 bytes will be allocated, total 10 bytes will be allocated to represent the salary field. Right? Out of this 10, 2 will be used for defining the decimal point, and 8 bytes will be used for representing the integer part. Right? So here 8 bytes for integer part and 2 for the fractional part. Right? I hope you are clear with. So as a designer of the database, your application database student, you should have ability to find the base data type for your data. So if you want to define the roll number here, the best choice will be character, not the number. So when you will define the attribute as a number type, when you want to perform any arithmetic operations. So on salary, you can perform different arithmetic operations like addition of the salary. If you want to find out the average salary for all the employees, right? So you can find out minimum salary, maximum salary. So salary is the best example of the numeric type where we perform the arithmetic operations. But if you want to define the roll number, you can select the best choice as a character, not the number. Why? Because on roll number, we never perform the arithmetic operation. But in a daily practice, mostly we use numeric fields, numeric data to represent the roll number, and that's why we define this roll number as a number data type. But that is not the best choice. Why? Because we should think as a designer in terms of data space required for storing the value. So as you know, for storing one character in the memory, we need 1 byte, right? And for storing the integer value into the memory, we need 2 bytes, right? So if you define roll number as a number data type, so definitely my memory space requirement will be more as compared to the character data type, right? So remember, as the database designer, it is your responsibility to select the best type of the data. I hope you are clear with this. The next type of data is the character. So character data type used to store the alphabetic and alphanumeric values. So here the data type that is exists in the Oracle is the char, char. Again, I am repeating here, my Oracle and my SQL are not the case sensitive. Here you can write capital or small, both are in same meaning. Okay. Then in bracket, we mention here size of the data. So character data type used to store the character data within the predefined length. So here the storage is also given 2000 bytes. The range is given, that is maximum you can store the 2000 bytes with the help of character data type. Okay. So the purpose of these data types, character, varchar2 and varchar, is same, only there varies in the range, right? That is storage size. Then what is the difference between character and varchar here? So character, varchar2 is also a character type used to store the variable string data within the predefined length. Here, the additional word is what? Variable string. So varchar data type you can use to store the variable string data. For example, so you might be thinking when we should use the character and varchar. So if you know some fields are of the fixed size, for example, your mobile number. For mobile number, the best choice is character. Why? Because we know there are total 10 digits and we will never perform arithmetic operation on the mobile number. So you can define the data type for mobile number as a character. Right? So 10 bytes will be utilized here, right, for the storing the mobile number. So size for this mobile number will be 10, right? But varchar, when we should use the varchar data type here, if you want to define the name of the student. So we don't know how many fixed characters are there for the every student, right? Because every student will vary their name and their size of the name, number of characters in the name field. That time you can use the varchar data type. So again, in bracket, you can specify the maximum size that is required to represent any student name. So if you are defining here size, that is 20 bytes, right? But some of the students may have require only 10 bytes. Some students may require 15 bytes, right? Some students may require 18 bytes for representing their names, right? So here, this varchar2 will allocate the memory as per the requirement of the every student name. So here, our memory will not waste, right? If one student is having their name with the 5 characters only, so only 5 bytes will be allocated for that particular student's name. If another student is having their name of 10 characters, so only 10 characters will be allocated for storing the name of that particular student, and so on, right? So varchar is the best choice for storing the name of the student so that our memory will not waste here, right? Then subtype is also varchar with the size. Here one thing you can note down, student, only one minor difference is there between the varchar2 and varchar. So varchar2, in the varchar2, you must specify the size of the data type, right? But here in the varchar, size is optional. Otherwise their use is same, right? But it is a varchar is the subtype of the varchar2. So when you define any field, character field, right, you need to mention here the size in the varchar2. But in varchar, the size is optional. By default, it will take the default value. Otherwise, the range is also 4000 bytes. So it is the homework for you. Find out the default value for this varchar. The next data type is date and time data types. So again, here the data type is date, and this data type is used to store the valid date time format with the fixed length. This starting date from the range is also mentioned here that you can note down. Starting date from January 1, 4712 BC to December 31. Standard Oracle date format is DD-MON month-YY. For example, 13-June-19. Right? Here 2 digits you use for defining the date, 3 characters for the month, and 2 digits for the year. If you want to change this format, this is the standard format. So whenever you will define here the date of birth in the while creating the table, and while inserting the data, your by default your data for date format will be the standard format. So while inserting the date of birth of the student, okay, you need to insert in this format. For example, 13 June 19. So you can change this format as per your requirement by using some different date functions. So what are the different date functions are available that we will cover in the topic that is database functions, right? Some built-in functions are available here in the SQL language, right? That also we will cover in detail in the coming sessions. Then timestamp is also another date time data type to store the valid date with the year, month, and day with time in hour, minute, and second. So here you can see the syntax of timestamp with the fractional second and precision. So here is the one example along with the date, right? Also you can mention the time in second, right? Minute, second, and hours, right? So timestamp is the spelling here for defining the date data type. So whenever we use these data types in our commands and program, that time definitely you will clear with these all things. Thank you. Have a good day.